Two children sitting in the same classroom, but they seemed like they came from different planets. Nathaniel Pierce, the child whose father owned the city's largest bank, came to school with his chauffeur every morning. Zander Blackwood, on the other hand, tried to come by bicycle, sometimes walking. Nathaniel constantly looked down on Zander, calling him poor. But a week later, while Zander was sleeping in Nathaniel's bed, Nathaniel would wake up shivering in a cold basement. This seemed like just a school project, but it was actually an experience that would change both of their lives forever. Ravenswood Private Academy was the most prestigious educational institution in the city of Westbrook. Only children from elite families passed through its doors, and every corner reflected luxury and privilege. In this school, there was an invisible but well-known hierarchy among students. At the top were the children of wealthy families, and at the bottom were scholarship students who came through this social diversity program started this year. Nathaniel Pierce, 16 years old, with golden blonde hair professionally styled every morning, cold but confident blue eyes, was a child who carried himself with superiority. Tall, upright posture, every movement showed the superiority complex his family had given him. He always wore the most expensive Italian brands, handmade English leather shoes on his feet. His father, Harold Pierce, was the founder and CEO of Pierce Banking Group. Nathaniel, the sole heir of one of the city's most powerful families, had never experienced any hardship since birth, and every desire was immediately fulfilled. Nathaniel's days passed in luxury and comfort. Every morning at 7 o'clock, his private chauffeur James picked him up from home in a luxury Mercedes. On the way to school, Nathaniel played games on his phone or checked his social media. He had unlimited spending rights in the cafeteria for lunch, and after school, private lessons, golf training, and social activities awaited him. In the evenings, he ate meals prepared by the family's private chef, watched Netflix in his own room, or played video games with friends. Zander Blackwood, despite being 16 years old, carried maturity and responsibility far beyond his age. Dark brown-skinned, short curly hair, deep brown eyes held wisdom and fatigue far beyond his years. Tall but slightly thin, because he couldn't always eat regularly. His school uniform was clean but old, shoes repaired several times, school bag used but carefully maintained. His mother, Claudia Blackwood, 39 years old, worked as a nurse at Riverside State Hospital. Despite being a very beautiful woman, years of exhaustion were visible on her face. Every morning, she went to the hospital at 6 o'clock and returned home at 11 in the evening. She worked overtime on weekends, sometimes taking private caregiving jobs. Her only goal was to send her son to a good school and provide him with a good future. Zander's days were filled with struggle and responsibility. Every morning, he woke up at 5:30 and prepared breakfast before his mother went to work. There were several ways to get to school. If the weather was good and his bicycle was working, he would cycle for 45 minutes. Otherwise, he would walk 8 kilometers or very rarely use public transportation if he could find bus money. After school, he would go home to clean, check the shopping list, and prepare food for his mother's return home. In the evenings, he massaged his mother's tired legs, and they watched television together. Zander was a full scholarship student at Ravenswood Academy. His academic success was extraordinary, especially being the most successful student in his class in mathematics and science. But the fact that he was on scholarship was reminded to him and other students every day. Although school expenses were covered, extra money was needed for social activities, school trips, and special projects, and he could never participate in these. The conflict between the two had been ongoing since school started. Nathaniel never missed an opportunity, belittling Zander and his situation, ensuring that other students behaved the same way. In Nathaniel's eyes, Zander was someone who lowered the school's standards and didn't belong here. The incident that happened in the cafeteria 2 weeks ago was still on everyone's lips. Zander had only bought water because his allowance had run out and sat in the corner. Nathaniel came with his friends and said, "Are you hungry again, Blackwood? Maybe you should ask your mother to work more." "Oh, sorry. Your mother already works day and night, doesn't she?" The entire cafeteria heard. Zander got up and left without saying anything. Nathaniel and his friends laughed for minutes. That Monday morning, when human sciences teacher Ms. Elizabeth Crawford entered the classroom, she had a thick file in her hand and a laptop to connect to the projector. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and glasses. She had been teaching for 30 years, specializing in empathy and social justice. Most students loved and respected her because she not only taught lessons, but also gave valuable life lessons. Today, we are starting one of our school's most important and exciting projects, said Ms. Crawford, placing the file on her desk and opening the laptop. Social Empathy and Life Experience Project. This project is designed to help students from different economic situations understand each other, develop empathy, and experience social justice. The 24 students in the class looked at each other. Most came from wealthy families. Only 3 students were on scholarship. Such projects usually remained theoretical, but from Ms. Crawford's tone, it was understood that this would be different. How exactly will the project work? Asked Madison, one of Nathaniel's closest friends, a blonde girl whose father owned a luxury hotel chain. For 1 week, 2 students from different social and economic situations will completely change their lives. They will change not only their homes, but also their daily routines, responsibilities, budgets, and even social circles. This will not just be an experience, but a real-life lesson. Murmurs rose from the class. This idea seemed strange, even a bit frightening to most students. Who will participate in this project? Asked another student. Ms. Crawford, adjusting her glasses, said in a clear voice, Nathaniel Pierce and Zander Blackwood, you two will be the pilot application of this project. Nathaniel's face fell, his eyebrows furrowed. He leaned back in his chair. Ms. Crawford, I didn't volunteer for this experiment. This is not an experiment, Nathaniel. It's a scientifically designed educational project. And if you fail in this project, you will fail sociology class. If you fail sociology class, you will lose the right to give the valedictorian speech at graduation. This was a big blow for Nathaniel. Speaking at the graduation ceremony was extremely important for his family. His father, Harold Pierce, very much wanted his son to be valedictorian, seeing this as a source of pride in their social circles. Losing this right would be a major blow to family prestige. Zander sat quietly, thinking about what this situation meant for him. Staying at Nathaniel's house for a week. Was this possible? What would this experience teach him? The rules are very simple but very clear, continued Ms. Crawford, showing project details on the projection screen. Nathaniel will live Zander's life for 1 week. He will stay at Zander's house, take on his daily responsibilities, try to get by with the family budget. He will do household chores, help his mother go to and from work, experience the difficulties Zander faces every day. Nathaniel swallowed. Household chores. Yes. Since Zander's mother works alone, Zander takes on many responsibilities at home. Cooking, cleaning, planning shopping, managing the budget, meeting his mother's needs. The students in the class looked at Zander in amazement. Most had never taken on these responsibilities. They had staff at home who did these jobs. Zander, on the other hand, the teacher continued, will stay at Nathaniel's house, have access to his opportunities, experience his world. He will see what luxury life means, how a different social environment works. Nathaniel looked at Zander with a dismissive smile. At least you'll enjoy this. You'll experience the luxury I live in. Zander didn't respond, but there was a different expression in his eyes. Did this opportunity excite him, or did it worry him? This project will only last 1 week, said Ms. Crawford, but its effect will last a lifetime. Because real empathy develops not just by listening to others' stories, but by walking in their shoes. But the most shocking thing was what Nathaniel would experience on the first day of the project. That evening at 6 o'clock, Nathaniel went to Zander's house with a small travel bag. His father, Harold's chauffeur James, would drop him off at the address. The address took them to the Millfield neighborhood on the south side of the city. This neighborhood was a place Nathaniel had never set foot in. The streets were narrow and very crowded. Buildings were old and neglected. Cars were models older than 10 years. Some houses had iron bars on their windows. Street lamps weren't working in some places. As Nathaniel looked out from inside the car, he asked anxiously, James, is this place safe? Mr. Pierce, Miss Crawford's instructions were very clear. I will drop you off here and come back to pick you up at the same time in a week, said James. But there was concern in his voice too. Well, does the phone work here? Can I call you in an emergency? Of course, sir, but orders are clear. Only for real emergencies. Nathaniel took his bag and looked at the street. He had never been in such a place. Sidewalks were cracked and broken in places. Garbage cans had overflowed on street corners. Sounds of music and children could be heard from a distance. This was very different from the world he knew. The building where Zander lived was a 3-story, red brick old apartment building. The entrance door's paint had peeled off, some of the mailboxes were broken, the bell system wasn't working. As Nathaniel climbed the stairs, every step creaked. There were moisture stains on the walls, and there was a strange smell in the corridor that was a mixture of different food odors. By the time he reached the 3rd floor, he was out of breath. He had never climbed so many stairs. He wasn't used to exercising. Zander was waiting for him at the door. "Welcome, Nathaniel. You really came? I'm surprised, actually." Nathaniel looked around. "This is a temporary situation, right? Everything returns to normal in a week." "Of course. But this week, this is your home. You're a member of this place. Come in." When they opened the door to the house, Nathaniel experienced a big shock. The house consisted of only 2 rooms. When you entered, you came directly to the living room. This area was also used as a dining room. On the right was a small kitchen corner. On the left was a single bedroom and a very small bathroom. The total area was smaller than Nathaniel's room in his house. The furniture was old but well-maintained. A 2-person old model sofa, a small dining table, an old television. A few family photos and Zander's school achievement certificate were hung on the walls. Everything was clean and organized, but far from the luxury Nathaniel was used to. "This is your room," said Zander, pointing to the bedroom. "I'll sleep on the sofa this week." Nathaniel looked at the bedroom. Single bed, small closet, small study desk. The walls were almost empty, only a few books and Zander's school badges. From the window, you could see the wall of the opposite building. "Well, where are your siblings, other family members?" Zander hesitated, with a slight break in his voice. "Nathaniel, only my mother and I live here. My father left us when I was 8 years old. My mother has been raising me alone since then." This information surprised Nathaniel. He had never experienced or even thought about single-parent family structure. In his world, families were complete, problems were solved with money. "Where is your mother now?" "She's working the night shift at the hospital. Since she'll mostly work nights this week, she won't see you much. She comes home at 7 in the morning, sleeps for a few hours, then goes back to work in the afternoon." Nathaniel looked around more carefully. The television was a model produced at least 10 years ago. The refrigerator constantly made strange sounds. Its motor seemed to be running nonstop. "Is there at least internet?" "Yes, but very slow. Since we paid the phone bill late this month, speed restrictions were imposed. We need to be very careful about data usage, otherwise the internet gets cut off." "Is there PlayStation, Xbox?" "No. Our budget doesn't allow us to buy those." "Is there air conditioning?" "No. In summer we use a fan. In winter we heat with an old electric heater and blankets." Nathaniel's head was spinning. How could anyone live like this? That night, when Nathaniel lay in Zander's bedroom, he couldn't sleep at all. The bed was very hard and narrow. His room was cold. There was constant noise from outside. The silence, comfort, soft bed he was used to, none of it was there. Music sounds from the neighboring apartment, car sounds from the street, footsteps from upstairs, neighbors' conversation sounds. He had never tried to sleep in such a noisy environment. Around midnight, he heard Claudia coming home. Zander immediately got up and greeted his mother. Nathaniel listened through the door crack. "Son, did your friend come?" "Yes, Mom, he's sleeping now. He won't bother you at all, I promise." "Okay, honey. I'll sleep a bit too. Then I have to go back to work in the afternoon. I'm working double shifts this week." Nathaniel could tell from her voice how tired Claudia was. Didn't this woman ever get to rest properly? You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. The next morning at 5:30, Zander woke him up. "Get up, Nathaniel. We need to get ready for school." "It's still very early. I normally wake up at 7:30. We're walking to school. It takes about an hour and a half, so we get up early." "Walking? School is at least 8 kilometers away." "Yes. I do this every day, sometimes by bicycle, but the chain broke last week. I don't have money to get it repaired. Bus money also affects my weekly food budget too much." Nathaniel couldn't believe it. Walking 8 kilometers every day? Was this possible in real life? At breakfast, there was only bread, margarine, cheap jam, and tea on the table. Nathaniel's usual fresh squeezed orange juice, yogurt, honey, various cheeses, fresh fruits, eggs. None of them were there. Is this all? He asked, feeling his hunger. Money is a bit tight this week. My mother's salary was delayed. We had to pay electricity and water bills first. Tomorrow we'll do grocery shopping. Maybe we can buy eggs and cheese. Well, if we can buy eggs, who will make breakfast? I do. My mother comes home very tired from work. I prepare breakfast for her, cook dinner. Nathaniel had never cooked. 3 meals prepared by a professional chef came to the table every day at their house. On the way to school, hell began for Nathaniel. After the first 2 kilometers, his feet started to hurt. By the 3rd kilometer, he had trouble breathing and was sweating. By the 4th kilometer, his backpack started cutting into his shoulders and his legs ached. By the 5th kilometer, he stopped. I can't walk anymore, he said, out of breath and sweaty. There are still 3 kilometers left. Let's rest a bit if you want. How do you do this every day? It was very hard at first, but the body gets used to it over time. It's actually good exercise. Since I don't have money to go to the gym, this is how I stay fit. Also, I listen to podcasts while walking, sometimes read books. This created a huge shock effect in Nathaniel's mind. Zander saw this positively. He wasn't complaining. When they arrived at school, Nathaniel was completely exhausted. His feet were swollen. His hair was stuck with sweat. But other students who saw where Zander lived and how he came to school approached curiously. Nathaniel, are you really living at Zander's place? Said Madison in amazement. This is temporary, said Nathaniel in defense mode, lowering his voice so others wouldn't hear. It's just a project. It ends in a week. Well, how do you feel? Is it very different? Is it hard? Nathaniel couldn't answer, because he really didn't know how he felt. Tired, confused, his head was mixed up, and he was somewhat ashamed. It was at this point that everything began to change. At lunch break, Nathaniel tried to buy something from the cafeteria with the small money Zander gave him. He only had $5 in his pocket. This was Zander's weekly lunch budget. The cheapest sandwich in the cafeteria was $7. The cheapest salad was $6. The cheapest drink was $3. What can I buy with this money? He asked Beth at the cafeteria. Beth was a middle-aged, kind woman who understood student situations. You can buy an apple, $2. Or a pack of crackers, $1.50. Banana, $1. Water is free, of course. Nathaniel experienced for the first time in his life not being able to buy what he wanted because of money. He only bought an apple, a pack of crackers, and a banana, sat in the corner, and ate slowly. While other students around him ate pizza, hamburgers, fresh salads, fancy drinks, he was trying to chew his crackers. Madison came to his table with her friends. Nathaniel, are you only eating crackers? This isn't your style. This is nutritious, said Nathaniel, with shame. We can offer you some food. We have plenty with us. No, I'm fine. This is a project requirement. But he really wasn't fine. He was hungry, and this wasn't just physical hunger. For the first time, he understood that without money, he couldn't even buy the most basic need, food. For the first time, he noticed the connection between money and freedom. Zander came and sat next to him. How is it going? This is very hard, Zander, said Nathaniel quietly. I didn't know you lived like this every day. How is this possible? This is just the beginning, said Zander with sad realism. This evening, before my mother goes to work, she needs to come home. We need to prepare food for her. Have you ever cooked? Nathaniel shook his head. We have a chef for 3 meals. Okay, then you'll start learning. Also, there are jobs you need to do this week. Washing dishes, taking out trash, small cleaning tasks, planning grocery shopping. Nathaniel's head was spinning. So many responsibilities. That evening when they returned home, again walking, again 8 kilometers, Nathaniel's feet were swollen, his back ached. But since Zander never complained, he tried not to either. Zander taught Nathaniel a simple pasta recipe. First he learned to chop onions, and his eyes watered. Then preparing tomato sauce, boiling pasta. Nathaniel worked in the kitchen for the first time. His hands burned. He spilled things. He was afraid of the stove. But finally, he prepared a plate of food. Did I really make this? He asked, feeling proud. Yes, and it's actually not bad, said Zander, tasting it. When Claudia came home, it was 11:30 in the evening. She was in her nurse clothes, hair messy, dark circles under her eyes. She had worked 2 shifts. Nathaniel's heart ached when he saw her. Hello, children, said Claudia, smiling with difficulty. Zander, how is your friend? I hope he's not causing trouble. No, Mom. Nathaniel is very good. He even cooked today. Did you make it, sweetheart? Said Claudia, turning to Nathaniel. You're so sweet. I'm really tired. This is a very nice surprise. Nathaniel noticed how tired Claudia was, how cracked her hands were, how swollen her feet were. This woman had worked 16 hours, could never fully rest, was constantly working, and even when she came home, she had to deal with housework. Miss Claudia, I can wash the dishes, said Nathaniel, getting up. No, you're a guest. I'll do it. No, I'm a member of your family this week. This is my job too. Claudia looked at her son. Zander was smiling proudly. That night, while Nathaniel was washing dishes, taking out trash, tidying the house, he understood that doing jobs he had never done wasn't actually that hard. What was hard was having to do these every day, even when you were tired, even when you were sick. While Claudia was eating, she talked with Nathaniel. Which family do you come from, sweetheart? Nathaniel hesitated. The Pierce family. Pierce. I think I've heard the name. What do they do? My father is a banker. Claudia nodded. Nice profession. Are you thinking of becoming a banker too? I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet. Zander is very successful in mathematics and economics. Maybe he'll become a banker one day too. Nathaniel looked at Zander. He had never thought about his future plans. Do you have university plans, Zander? I'm trying to get a full scholarship. I'm aiming for MIT or Stanford. I want a double major in economics and mathematics. Nathaniel was surprised. Were Zander's goals this high? Well, how will you reach these goals? I'm trying to improve my SAT score. I can't take extra classes, but I study from online resources. Teachers help too. Claudia looked at her son proudly. This child is very hardworking. He studies until 3 at night. Nathaniel was trying to digest this information. Zander wasn't just trying to survive. He was also dreaming big. That night, as he lay down, Nathaniel thought about the difficulties in Zander's life. This wasn't just poverty. This was a struggle, a determination, a hope. Now what you see is nothing. At the same time, Zander was experiencing a completely different world at Nathaniel's house. The Pierce Mansion, built on 6,000 square meters of land in Westbrook's most prestigious neighborhood, resembled a palace. It was a massive house with 18 rooms, 5 bathrooms, 3 living rooms, a huge kitchen, wine cellar, gym, and cinema room. Its garden had a swimming pool, tennis court, gardener's house, and a 3-car enclosed garage. Harold Pierce, 53 years old, CEO of Pierce Banking Group, was surprised when he met his son's friend. He was trying to understand the situation by looking at Zander's clothes, speaking style, and posture. Are you Nathaniel's friend? Asked Harold, wearing an Italian suit, with a crystal whiskey glass in his hand. Yes, sir. I'm Zander Blackwood. Welcome, Zander. Where is Nathaniel? Why didn't he come with you? He's staying somewhere else for a school project. I'll be staying here. Harold Pierce didn't know the details. Nathaniel hadn't explained the project to him in detail. He had only said, an important social project. I understand. Well, tell me about your family. What do they do? Zander hesitated. He didn't know how to answer this question. Should he tell the truth? My mother is a nurse, sir. Ah, the health sector. Which private hospital does she work at? Maybe I know it. It's not private, sir. She works at Riverside State Hospital. Harold's eyebrows slightly furrowed. State hospital? This was an unexpected answer. Everyone in his social circle worked in the private sector. I see. What does your father do? Zander's voice slightly broke. I don't have a father, sir. My mother raised me alone. This information surprised Harold even more. Single parent, working at a state hospital as a nurse. This was very different from the families in his social circle. Victoria Pierce, Harold's wife, 46 years old, met Zander at dinner. With her perfect makeup, expensive clothes, and jewelry, she represented the upper-class woman. This young man is Nathaniel's friend, Harold told his wife. Welcome, sweetheart, said Victoria, but there was distance in her voice. Nathaniel has never mentioned you. Where did you meet? At school, ma'am. We're in the same class. Ah, Ravenswood. Do you go there too? Which area are you from? From Millfield, ma'am. Victoria's facial expression changed. Millfield was one of the city's poorest areas. The room shown to Zander was bigger than their entire house. It was an 80-square-meter room with a king-size bed, walk-in closet, private bathroom, and balcony. Inside, there was the latest technology television, sound system, mini fridge, and even a game console. That night at dinner, Zander sat at the long mahogany table with Harold and Victoria. The table was so big that there was 3 meters distance between them. They had to raise their voices to talk. The meal consisted of 5 different courses. It was prepared by a private chef, and each course was a work of art. Zander had never seen such luxurious food in his life. "Zander, which country did your family come from?" asked Victoria, sipping wine. "We're American, ma'am. My mother was born in Ohio." "What is your mother's educational background?" "She's a nursing school graduate." Victoria and Harold exchanged glances. Victoria's facial expression changed. She was beginning to understand Zander's social status. "Well, which schools did you attend?" "Which private schools were you at before Nathaniel?" "I always attended public schools. I'm on scholarship at Ravenswood." This word had a bomb effect at the table. Victoria dropped her fork. Harold's wine drinking stopped. "Scholarship?" asked Victoria, with obvious surprise in her voice. "Yes, ma'am. Academic merit scholarship." Harold tried to recover. "That's very good. Supporting successful students is very important." But Victoria's attitude had changed. Now she was looking at Zander more coldly, more distantly. The next morning, when Zander woke up in Nathaniel's room, he experienced great surprise. The luxury in the room was incredible. The latest model laptop, tablet, game console, professional music system. Hundreds of clothes in the walk-in closet, dozens of shoes. Everything was perfect, clean, organized. But something was missing: warmth. This house was too big, too cold, too distant. Everyone lived in their own rooms. The family didn't seem to really talk to each other or spend time together. At breakfast, Harold was reading his newspaper. Victoria was busy with her phone. Zander was eating alone. No one even said good morning to each other. "Harold," said Victoria, hanging up her phone. "This child? Is he really Nathaniel's friend?" "What do you mean? This place is too different for him. Maybe Nathaniel just pities him." Zander heard this conversation, but said nothing. When Nathaniel's chauffeur James took him to school, Zander felt lost inside the car. The inside of the Mercedes was as big as his house's living room. James didn't talk to him much, just did his job. At school, students began treating Zander differently. When they learned he was staying at Nathaniel's house and coming with the Pierce family car, they treated him more respectfully. This change bothered Zander. "It's like I'm only valuable with money," he thought. "You won't believe, but..." On the 4th day, everything changed. While Nathaniel was waiting by Claudia's side at the hospital, he called his father. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something very important." "What happened, son? How is the project going?" "Dad, you need to come here." "With Mom." "To the hospital." "To the hospital? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but please come." "I'll explain." Harold and Victoria Pierce came to Riverside State Hospital upon their son's urgent call. When they saw the hospital, they were surprised. They had never known this environment: crowded corridors, plastic chairs, waiting people. Nathaniel took them to Claudia's room. "Mom, Dad, let me introduce you. This is Miss Claudia, Zander's mother." Harold and Victoria were surprised. They now really understood where their son was and who he was staying with. "Nathaniel, are you really staying here?" asked Victoria anxiously. "Yes, Mom, and I learned a lot. Before living this project, I knew nothing." Claudia, in shame, began, "I'm sorry, your son's staying in such a situation." "No," said Nathaniel firmly. "I should be the one apologizing. I treated Zander and you very badly. I judged you without ever knowing you." Harold Pierce listened quietly. Where was this maturity in his son coming from? "Dad," said Nathaniel, "I can never be the same as before. These people taught me real values. How Zander takes care of his mother, how responsible he is, how hardworking. I knew none of it." Then he turned to Claudia. "Miss Claudia, we will cover your hospital expenses. And you don't need to worry about Zander's university dream." Claudia, with tears in her eyes, said, "Son, I can't take money from you." "This isn't just money," said Nathaniel. "This is justice. This is the right thing to do." Harold Pierce looked at his son. Was this really his arrogant, selfish son? Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. On the 5th day, Zander had a deep conversation with Harold at the Pierce mansion. "Zander," said Harold, "you are a very special young man." "Thank you, Mr. Pierce. The change I see in Nathaniel is incredible. You taught him very important things. He taught me a lot too. I understood that wealth isn't just money." "What do you mean?" "In this house, Everything exists, but everyone lives alone. When was the last time you really talked with Nathaniel? Do you know his fears, his dreams? Harold thought. When was the last time really? You're right, said Harold. We're so busy making money that we forgot to be a family. That night Harold had a long conversation with Victoria. Maybe we're living very wrong. What do you mean? Zander's family is financially struggling, but they love each other very much. They take care of each other. We, on the other hand, are just strangers living under the same roof. Victoria also thought. I noticed the change in Nathaniel too. He's more mature, more empathetic. On the 6th day, the project was almost over. Nathaniel now understood Zander's world, knew the neighborhood, talked with neighbors. This wasn't just poverty. This was a community, a solidarity. Nathaniel, said Zander, we're going back to our homes tomorrow. I know, but none of us are the same people anymore. How did you change? Now I know the value of everything. Food, shelter, family. These aren't luxuries, they're basic rights. And everyone deserves them. On the 7th day, the project officially ended. At school, Ms. Crawford called the two children. How was this experience? Nathaniel answered. It was the hardest but most valuable week of my life. I never knew how strong Zander was, how smart and determined he was. Zander also spoke. I learned a lot too. I saw that money doesn't bring happiness. Real wealth is in your family, in your friends. What will you do from now on? Both looked at each other. We'll be real friends, said Nathaniel. But the real change was just beginning. 6 months passed. Nathaniel had completely changed. He no longer wanted to come to school with a chauffeur. He came by bus or walking with Zander. He had become very careful about money, stopping unnecessary spending. More importantly, he had established a real father-son relationship with his father, Harold Pierce. They talked together in the evenings, spent time together on weekends. Dad, he had said one day, when I grow up, I want to establish a bank that gives opportunities to people like Zander. Harold took this idea seriously. He established the Education and Opportunity Loans department within Pierce Banking Group. The first customer was Claudia for a home loan. Zander's life had also changed. Thanks to Nathaniel's family, his mother now worked only single shifts. The house was in a more comfortable situation. But Zander worked harder to deserve this help. Other students at school also began to change when they saw the friendship between the two. No one made distinctions between rich and poor anymore. A year later, Nathaniel and Zander had become closest friends. Nathaniel's family had adopted Zander, and Claudia loved Nathaniel like her own son. The school principal called them. We want to spread this project throughout the city. Will you help? Both enthusiastically accepted. Now they were explaining this project at different schools, helping young people develop empathy. You see, Nathaniel would say in his speeches, I was the child of a rich family, but I was spiritually poor. Zander was struggling financially, but his heart was rich. Zander would add, money can't change the heart, but the heart determines how money should be used. This project had changed not just 2 children, but 2 families and eventually the entire community. Nathaniel was now organizing volunteer aid to the hospital where Claudia worked together with his father. Harold Pierce had begun to see the world through his son's eyes. Zander had won a full scholarship to MIT and said he wanted to work in social banking in the future. What did this project teach us? Ms. Crawford had asked in the final evaluation. Real wealth is not the money in our pockets, but the love in our hearts, Nathaniel had said. And real power is not looking down on others, but lifting them up, Zander had added. This story teaches us life's most important lesson. Building empathy, breaking down prejudices, and understanding each other is much more valuable than any material possessions we have. Sometimes life's greatest lessons come from the most unexpected experiences. And real friendship is measured not by social status, but by the richness of character.